So we are in Black History Month, and each week of this month we've invited one of our very own congregants to share a few words with us today. Today we have board member Lori Plick.
Good morning, Unity family, and happy Black History Month. Unlike a lot of you, I wasn't raised in a family steeped in New Thought. In fact, as someone who grew up Baptist, I think I described my first visit to a Unity church as a very homogenous, hippie church light. It wasn't until I visited UCOH that I was open to see and take in the total acceptance of love, of diversity that was being offered. I hadn't realized that African Americans had played such a huge role in the New Thought movement until I started to do a little digging into our history. I mean, everybody talks about Ruth Mosley, the founder of the Unity Urban School, or the Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman, who was the first African American to live at Unity Village, and her church, in Chicago, Christ Universal Temple. But what about the ones you probably saw on TV every single day and didn't know that they were part of the Unity family? Take, for example, Della Reese. Yes, she started as a jazz singer of Don't You Know? And for me growing up, she was that lady on Chico and the Man and Sanford and Son. Yeah, I'm that old. Or maybe more recently, Touched by an Angel. That Della Reese. After suffering a brain aneurysm in the 80s, and she felt like her faith had taken her through, she became an ordained Unity minister and the founder of Understanding Principles for Better Living Church, aka the Up Church. In our own words, I think Mrs. Reese speaks to directly at the heart of why we all are drawn to Unity. She says, New Thought doesn't attempt to teach you what to think, but rather how to think on a higher level. And that level of thinking will immune you from doubt and fear that causes you not to see the best in ourselves and others. Immunizing yourself from negative thinking and actions allows the God qualities of confidence, diligence, compassion, forgiveness, and most importantly, love. Love to fill your life. This is how we achieve a healthy spiritual outlook, eliminate the negative, and hold on to the positive. Clean out your subconscious mind so you can recognize and accept the good that God has in store for you. A daily prayer that she goes on to say is, God promised me that I am whole, perfect, and complete. I believe it. Yes, like Dr. Reese, I believe the more we know about Black history and unity, the more we'll know that we are all whole, perfect, and complete. Love to you all. Namaste.
Thank you for that beautiful song. It has so many messages in it, and Tom, beautiful, and just everybody beautiful. And I want to just shout out that Susan is here and just looking beautiful as always. And, Bob died recently, and life goes on, right? God doesn't give us what we ask for, right? But God does provide us the faith, the courage, the strength to keep moving on. Our words up where I look for the camera says, with God, all things are possible, from Matthew. And it's true, with God, all things are possible, but it's not always necessarily exactly what we want. So it is said, found a couple of things, but here's what I know. Here's what I found out on the internet today, or this week, right? I'm quoting. It says, if 2020 was the year of hell, then 2021 is the year that hell froze over. Deep groans. Deep groans, I know. But I read it on the internet, so it had to be true. Facebook, actually, to be truthful. And then the other thing I saw on Facebook, which I think is very fascinating, said, it was a meme, and it said COVID was saying, I cannot get those Texans to stay home. And weather says, hey, let me have a shot at it. Weather won. We stayed home. Anyway, I don't know if those were funny or not, but they tickled my funny bone in really weird ways. So Hopefully you're doing okay. I know a lot of people were without power. I know a lot of people still are without water. We've got people around here who are happy to help you fill water. I know Kim put something in the chat. If you need water, let us know. Hopefully everybody's got power again and everybody's safe. What I know about Unity Church of the Hills is we take care of each other. And what I know about the city of Austin and Texans and Americans and humanity is that when going gets really tough, we rise up. Individual to individual, one person at a time, taking care of one person at a time. You know, one of the most beautiful stories that I noticed this week was one of the furniture stores here in the Austin area. They opened their doors. So they've got all these beds and recliners and couches, and they said, come, we've got heat. We don't have much water. They had a trickle of water, but they got water in. They fed the people. It's a store that even had a cafeteria, so they were feeding people. They were bringing food in. They were like opening their doors. And in opening their doors, they were opening their hearts. And what if, other than opening our hearts, what are we called to do? In these weird times, in these strange days, in life itself, because that's what we're here to do. It was strange for me. I'm staying in Sin City, and we were on rolling blackouts. There's still a lot of weird things going on. Are we still good? I'm going to keep going like we're still good. Anyway, we were on rolling blackouts, and so the power would go off for a couple hours, and then it would come on for a couple hours. Then it would go off for a couple hours, then it would go on. And then it would go off for like 3 or 4 or 6 or 7 hours, and then it would go on. And I got like PTSD over that. Not so much post-traumatic stress syndrome, but pre-traumatic stress syndrome. Every time the power went on, like if the fridge went on or off or the heat kicked in, I would jump. I'd be like, oh no, it's going to go off again. Oh no, it's going to go off again. It was very weird. Felt very Twilight Zone-ish to me. Felt really, really strange, and I didn't have it bad at all. I mean, I had it really, really easy as things go. But I know that when things like this happen, it kind of makes us, we lose our foundation a little bit, and we get a deeper foundation. Both are true, right? We're kind of rocked, and yet we rise up. We find that strength within us. And so I titled this talk a few weeks ago. It's called Remaining Awake Through a Great Revolution. And it's based on Martin Luther King's, one of his famous talks. He gave it at several different commencements, and he's talking about staying awake. And I have to tell you that even in this last week, I didn't know that I went to sleep. I stayed pretty awake, but it was like my beingness shrunk in order to navigate the times. Did you have an experience of that? Or maybe your beingness grew as you were taking care of other people. But it's when life happens, we still have to get to stay awake. From Romans, all things work together for good for those who love God. That's always been a strange statement to me, but that's from Romans 8, verse 28. But if you back up a little bit, Romans 8, verse 5, says, those who live according to the flesh have their minds set on what the flesh desires. Okay, for me, that's warm water, heat out of my electricity, warm food, all of those basic things, right? But those who live in accordance with the Spirit have their mind set on what the Spirit desires. The mind governed by the flesh is dead, but the mind governed by the Spirit is peace and life. We know that the whole creation has been groaning as in the pains of childbirth right up to the present time. Haven't we been groaning? The last 10 days, the last 14 months or 9 months or 11 months or however long it's been. We've been groaning for a long time. But not only so, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit grown inwardly as we await eagerly for our adoption to sonship, the redemption of our bodies. Now, I have to step back, take that not so much literally as metaphysically and metaphorically. And really what this whole chapter of Romans is saying to us, that Paul is saying to us, and he's writing to the Romans, he's writing in encouragement in times that are tough. But it is about landing in that place that knows, just like the song said, that my faith in God will get me through, that God gives me the strength and the courage and the wisdom to get through whatever life gives, right? And in this time, the great revolution of consciousness, the great revolution of awakening from separation, from the desires of the flesh, if you will, to the awareness of oneness, if you will, sonship, if you will, awakening to that, we have to stay diligent and vigilant in our trust, in our faith, in our awareness. We get to not go to sleep. And when we go to sleep, we get to wake up and wake up and wake up again and again and again. Rumi says, try not to resist the changes that come your way. Instead, let life live through you. And do not worry that your life is turning upside down. How do you know that the side you're used to is better than the one to come? I love that image. Don't worry if your life is being turned upside down or inside out. Don't worry. Don't worry. Do not worry. Jesus said, do not worry. Jesus didn't say, don't worry on Sunday morning. He said, do not worry. Do not worry about anything for any reason. Do not worry. Put your worry, take your worry, and set it down. And come back. And come back to the truth principles. And come back to the truth that we know. That there is only one presence and one power. We call it God. That we are of God, in God, as God. That we have the tools to navigate whatever it is that life brings us. That's key. We have the tools to navigate whatever it is that life brings us. Martin Luther King starts his famous speech by telling the story of Rip Van Winkle. Now, Rip Van Winkle, if you remember your fairy tales, right, is the one that went up the mountain and slept for 20 years. Sometimes, do you ever wish you could sleep for 20 years? Or 20 minutes? Or 20 hours? 20 days? Anyway, he goes on to talk about when Rip Van Winkle went up the mountain, and when he came down the mountain, he discovered that he had slept through a revolution. That when he came down the mountain, the sign that was at the base of the mountain, the picture was of George Washington. When he went up, it was of the king. He didn't know what had happened. He had slept not only for 20 years, but for a whole big change. And so he was disoriented in that change in consciousness, right? We're talking about revolution, but for us here, we're talking continually about the revolution in consciousness. You know, not out there, but in here. How do we wake up to that? A revolution is a radical change, a profound change in consciousness. The one that we're in now is from separation to oneness. The one that we're in now is showing itself in all kinds of different ways on the planet. From the pandemic to the violence to the polarization, all of these things are indicators, actually, that we're in the chaos before the breakthrough, that we're in the breakdown, all these systems that are breaking down, what if they're breaking down so we can rise up? I was in one of my global consciousness calls, and we were doing, this big work that we do, and I had the experience, we were still frozen in, but I had the experience of, in my meditation, so to speak, but I felt like in this work that we were doing, I was like shot up and blasted through a whole, what's the top level of the atmosphere? The one that kind of surrounds our planet, whatever that is, right? It's like shot up through that. But that, in my particular experience this week, was ice. It was a layer of ice. I was like, okay, that's probably very personal to us here, right? But shot up. And what's on the other side of this invisible boundary between separation and oneness? What's on the other side? Was brilliance. It was just brilliance. Was doing some work with Richard Rohr this week because we had a board training, not yesterday, but the weekend before. We were in board training Friday night and all day Saturday, and Richard Rohr's name came up a couple of times, and he's written many books, including Falling Upward and Universal Christ and all kinds of things. And so I was in his body of work, and I was reading about Barbara Holmes, who's a part of his body of work now, and she's African American, and so we're Black History Month, so we're weaving this all in and through, right? And she says, we're moving from victimization, marginalization, oppression, oppressors, and that's all the old story. But the new story would see all of us evolving, self-expanding, finding a new place in this wonderful cosmology. She goes on to say the physics and cosmology revolution, I call it a revolution in consciousness, the physics and cosmology revolution that is over 100 years old and has not been translated into the ordinary world of any of us. According to physicists, this is what the world is like. It's a universe permeated with movement and energy that vibrates and pulses with access to many dimensions. We are all interconnected, not just spiritually or imaginally, but actually. And the explicit or manifested order that's all around us makes us think that we're separate. And she goes on to say this, I learned that the ideas of dominance are predicated on Newtonian clockwork universe. So like dominoes, you push one and they all fall down and everything's in order. But quantum physics, which is what we're operating in now, tells us that the world is completely different. Particles burst into existence in unpredictable ways. Observations affect the observed, and dreams of order and rationality are not the building blocks of the universe. But the building blocks of the universe is vibration, is frequency, is the power of love. It is the imaginal realm of what is possible. Leads me to my joke. I always have to kind of set those up just, so I don't shock you too much. So a kindergarten teacher was observing her class while the children all drew their art. And she would occasionally walk around to see what each child's work was. And she got to one little girl, and she said, who was working diligently. And the teacher said, well, what are you drawing? And she goes, I'm drawing God. And the teacher said, well, no one knows what God looks like. How do you know what to draw? She goes, they will when I'm done. What does it look like? What does new humanity look like? How are we designing it? Because new humanity is a new cosmology. It is the power of co-creating that which works for all people. Another God joke. Another elementary school joke. The children were lined up in the cafeteria of a Catholic elementary school for lunch, and at the head of the table was a big, large pile of apples. And the nun had posted the note on the apple tray saying, "Take only one, God is watching." Thought nothing of it. They moved through the line. They get down to the other end of the line, and there was a big pile of chocolate chip cookies, and a child had written a note for the cookies. "Take all you want, God's watching the apples." Take all you want of that which is good. Not that apples aren't good. Take all that you want of love and kindness and compassion, because when we activate those things, they expand. When we activate that which we want, it expands, especially in the quantum realm, in the quantum world. A few years ago, 10 years ago, a decade ago, which is hard to imagine for me, I went through what I call now my spiritual awakening initiation. It was not my first awakening moment, nor has it actually been my last, but I had fallen into a body of work. I'd come into a time, I don't know how much of my story I've shared, and I'm just going to share a snippet of it today, but I'd come into a body of work that had asked me something outside of me, inside of me, greater than me, had asked me the question, "Are you willing to serve creation?" And I said, "Absolutely." And then the response was, "Then you'll be asked to surrender everything," which led me into this whole journey. That's when I left Austin, actually, when I left the ministry I was in here in Austin, when I left the Unity movement for a period of time, and I surrendered. It was a year and a half of absolute letting go of everything. Titles, labels, material, jobs, relationships even, the outer garments, right? But then it was a surrender of all the emotions of humanity. It was a moving through, a processing through of the emotions. And then it was my belief systems. Everything got to be dismantled and taken apart. And what I found over and over and over in that experience was this place. I just close my eyes because it's there. It's just there, this place of absolute bliss. This place of bliss, of love that took me to my knees over and over and over again. And on my knees and in my heart burst and burst and burst over and over and over again, inside out, on top of itself, underneath itself. And what I found was this point of stillness, this point of noneness, of no-ness. No thing, no thought, nothing, but the infinite void, which was and is the palpable presence of love. And I would have a moment or a day or a weekend or a week in this absolute bliss where my words didn't work and the colors were different than I'd ever seen before, and it was in like living in this bubble that was the universe, where the world as I knew it became just a tiny little grain of sand. And then something would happen and I would like, oh, well, that doesn't feel so good, right? Like maybe an emotion, maybe a grief, or maybe a rage, or maybe a fear would bubble up from within. And I knew that I was doing the work not only for my own soul, but for humanity. And I would process it, and I would process it not by saying, "Go away, I don't want to deal with you," but like, "Okay, bring it on. Okay, bring it on." We get knocked flat and, process through and burn through that stuff. And then another layer would be released. And it was like, there I am. There I am. That's what God is. That's what creation is. And then I'd go about my life and something would happen. And were those moments where I went to sleep? I don't know. Maybe some of them, definitely. All of them, I don't know. but we get to stay awake not only to those places of bliss and love and kindness and compassion, not only to those places where that's all we see, but we get to stay awake to all of it. Martin Luther King, in his talk, in his speech, was about staying awake as things are changing. Things are changing. Things are changing on the planet. Things are changing in consciousness. We are in a awesome, amazing, incredible moment of time. Maybe it's a decade, maybe it's 2, maybe it's 100 years, I don't know, where humanity is changing. And we're on that cutting edge of that because of our belief system. Because we already know the language, what we get to do is embody it. What we get to do is integrate it into every aspect of our being. What we get to do is to stand up awake to all that is, to everything that is, and everything we know to be true. I read this book this week. It's called Kindred by Octavia Butler. And I think Melissa has the link there. She might put it in the chat. And it's a novel. It was written in the late 70s. And it's a brilliant, gripping, disturbing book that's phenomenally fantastic. I couldn't put it down. And my friend Kate, who usually watches, Kate recommended it to me. So thanks, Kate. But the long story, in just a couple of sentences, it's a time travel kind of a thing. And Dana, who's the main character, was 26 years old. On her 26th birthday, was transported in time from 1976 to sometime in the 1800s. And she was just taken there. And the first time she was taken there, she saved this little boy from a drowning. And then she went back. And then she went again, and then she went again, and she went again. And what she discovered over the course of this book is that little boy she saved is ultimately her great-grandfather. And of course, he was a child of slave owners. And every time that Dana went back, she actually, the first few times, and she would go for a couple of hours, or then a couple of days, and then a few months, and then over an extended period of time. But then she'd go back to her home in 1976, and she'd only been gone a few hours. It was very, you had to kind of let your mind be blown to stay up with the story. But the longer that she was there, the more, at first she was observing, horrified really at the treatment of slaves. She was African American, and so she became, as she went back, one of the slaves, or she was seen as one of the slaves. And then she was there for a longer period of times, over months. And the reason I bring it up today is because the longer she was there, the more she shrunk into being a person who was really living in that time. The more that she acclimated to the times that she was living in. Now, for her, as a black woman living in 1976, married to a white man, by the way, going back into the 1800s was disturbing. And so it's her story, and her story of all of that journey. It's just a fabulous book. So get it. It's just good. But it impacted me because, especially then we're in ice down or whatever we called it, and how quickly I would shrink and how quickly I would become PTSD about the power coming off or going on. Or that first night we had power all night long, I must have woke up 7 times to check to make sure we still had power. It was crazy. I'm like, my body is in a stress response. And I bring it up again because probably some of you are in a stress response. But just know it's a stress response. And then take care of yourself. And take care of yourself. And take care of yourself. For we are in a revolution of awakening. We are in a revolution of love. and that love is the most revolutionary thing on the planet. It is the realization that things do not have to be the way they seem. It's awakening to a new way of being. It's an awakening to the truth that we are all one, and that there is one power and one presence, doesn't matter what you call it, that is active in us and through us, but more importantly, as us. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the ones that get to wake up every day, stay awake every day with love. Be a proactive part of the revolution of love, for equality, for kindness, compassion, for all people. And in closing, Rumi. Listen with ears of tolerance, see through the eyes of compassion, and speak with the language of love. I love you. Oh, yeah, can I have my, I'm going to do a meditation. It's a very strange day, so we're back and I'm doing a meditation because I forgot. So take a moment and we'll enter that meditation with that Rumi quote. I'll say it again. As we move our awareness into the center of our being, we listen with the ears of tolerance. We see with the eyes of compassion. And we speak with the language of love. Drop into the center of your being right here and right now. Drop your awareness from your thoughts, your emotions, from the outer world, from your problems, from your situations, your circumstances. Drop out of that and land in the depths of your being. Land in your heart of hearts. And imagine, if you will, that you have been asleep. Imagine, if you will, you've been asleep like Rip Van Winkle for 20 years, or a lifetime, or centuries. And imagine that you are awakening right here. Imagine your soul, your being awakening. And feel yourself waking up, just like after a long night's sleep. Wake up. Oh, stretch. Ah. And as you open your eyes and you look out over the world, over your life, you notice something's different. You notice the palpable presence of love. As you look out over the world, you see that kindness, that compassion. You see innovation and beauty and creativity. You see a synergy and a collaborative field that you've never even begun to imagine. And you think to yourself, wow, we've had a revolution of oneness. Feel how it feels in your body to be only aware of love. Feel how it feels as you awaken from the dream to be in a world of oneness. And as you are awake in your dream, look back onto this day in 2021 and sprinkle it, zing it, gift it with the sparkles of this love. Let it be like glitter, like diamonds glittering, landing onto this day in 2021. For you know now it's possible. You know now it is already done. Bring it. Sprinkle the world. Radiate love and kindness and compassion to every single person on the planet. Sprinkle our country and all the systems and all the places of division and all the places of others. Sprinkle it with this knowing that we are one. And as we learn to navigate 2021, we come into a palpable presence of oneness. And sprinkle that same love, that same oneness onto your life, onto your friends, your loved ones, those you struggle with. As you become the one who awakened from your dream into the one that is awake in oneness, in love, right here and right now. Say to yourself, I am awake. I remain awake. I wake up every moment I forget. I wake up again and again and again. And so it is. And so we let it be in oneness. Amen.